Hello. Perfect, my slide. Right. Hello and welcome to this thing. I'll just go through the warnings first. The seminar is not for the faint of heart. I'm sure you'll be sensible. You enter at your own risk, and anything you consume is at your own risk. No toilet breaks. The first beer contains isoglass, which is a byproduct from fish. So if you're vegan or vegetarian, avoid that one. The crisps contain dairy and not vegan and vegetarian again. And I can't guarantee everything is vegan and vegetarian, but it should be. And this is not a legal document, so do not hold me responsible. The Belgian beer seminar, right. Hi, Frankie. No, sorry. I am Reality 404, and I enjoy beer and demos and stuff. So how can I relate beer to the demo scene? Well, Belgium is UNESCO intelligent culture, and so is the demo scene in parts of Europe. So the demo scene and beer go in hand. Right. So this is the first beer. This is called Triple Alliance. It's not technically a Belgian beer. It's brewed in England, but it's a beer with a Burning Sky, which is another English brewery, and Brasserie de Lausanne, which is a brewery in Brussels, which is really nice, and they did a partnership and brewed this beer called Triple Alliance. So it's a combination of an English-style beer and a Belgian sort of beer infused in one. So, yeah. So that was sort of what you're drinking now. And Harvey's are a very old traditional English brewery. They are about 200 years old. They went round a tour specifically for this reason, to pick up the beer. And they're very near to where I live. And they were one of the gateways into why I got into beer and drinking beer. So they're my sort of local brewery. I'm not sure how we're doing with beer because I can't see. Yes. Cool. Because I'm going to quick because we were delayed. Right. So the next beer after this one is sour, which divides the room because some people like it, some people hate it. It's when I was getting into beer, I read a lot of beer books, often by the writer Michael Jackson, not the singer. And one of the breweries I always wanted to go and visit was Cantillon, which is in Brussels. So the first sort of revision I went to, I took a detour on the way to revision to go and visit Cantillon in Brussels. And in Brussels they run a little museum, and it's really worth visiting. It's like, it used to be like €8 to go around. You get 2 beers, and the brewery's unchanged since over 100 years. It still works the same. So it's a fantastic, even if you don't like beer, it's a fantastic bit of history. And you could combine that with going to Arsync, which is hopefully happening, and that's very close to Brussels. And Cantillon is also about 9 minutes walk from the mini train station, which is really convenient when I'm changing to go to demo parties because I can just walk and go and get beer. So that's very convenient. So yeah, Cantillon is goose. Goose is typically 3 brands of beer, normally 1, 2, and 3, but it can vary. And Lambic is like the oldest surviving style of beer. It's made in a big open vat, and then the windows in the building are left open, so the natural air and the yeast from the surrounding area comes in and inoculates the beer. So it's wild and natural yeast. It's controlled in a very specific way, though, and you end up with this amazing beer. So that is, if you like sour, yeah. And this is like, so yeah, a lot of my demo parties around Europe when I was getting into the demo scene were to specific countries for specific beer-related reasons. Yes. How are we doing on number 2? Good. So number 3 is another English beer. But Thornbridge is an English brewery. They actually are quite a traditional brewery. They're up north, quite near Burton and Trent, which, if you know anything about English beer, is the heart centre of England. But they created this Belgian style, I guess, called the Flemish sort of red ale. And this one has fruit, which one of the red fruits. Because they did a series of these beers, and so this is sour, but it should be quite tart and kind of like balsamic vinegar in a way, which I know might sound weird, but it does work quite well. So yeah, that is Thornbridge Day's creation. This is made using a Belgian yeast strain, but they also inoculate the beer with culture to produce specific sourness and taste they want. So this is kind of like seeing how you can create a specific style of beer. Thank you. Yes. Who was asking the question, sorry? Oh yeah, so with the while people are put off by sour beer, we can go even more into making you question it.
Now it's on. Question.
Yes.
Hi, not reality 404 here. A question on the second beer, the Lambic, or the Gust. So, seeing that everything is natural fermentation and the windows are open and it literally flies in and starts fermenting.
Yes.
That taking into account. Secondly, taking into account that the area where the brewery is like the drug capital of Europe with lots of cocaine.
Yes.
Criminality going on.
I have been chased down the street there, so yes.
My question is, how much cocaine did they drink?
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, that's, yeah. So if you go there, make sure you keep all your valuables and everything safe, because it is a very dodgy area. And also, I should have mentioned that this Canton and Lambic is protected, kind of like the Damascene is UNESCO, so you can only produce Lambic or Gueuze in the sort of Brussels region, greater, around the Seine River. So yeah, you can't, but you can make this style of beer. Other places you just can't call it Lambic or Gueuze. Anything else?
Not at the moment. Not right now!
Good. Let's skip to... Oh, yeah. So there's the logo of this beer, which is very nice and very sort of reminiscent of Belgium, even though it's English. So, while we're struggling, we'll get to number... We'll start talking about Belgian strong ale while I'm waiting for number 4 to go out. What? The mills, yes. So Belgium Strong Ale has a very long history in Belgium. There's famous styles such as the Vel, and that gnome that I've completely forgotten. But there's a bunch of Belgian strong ales, and they're very La Chouffe, and they're very popular. Duvel is one of my favourite beers. I love Belgian strong golden ale, and this was interesting to me because this is again an English brewery. But if we go back to the second beer, this was brewed in a cool ship, so very similar to how the first beer was beer, but using a mash similar to how a Belgian golden ale is produced. So they also used yeast with this as well. So it has a Belgian yeast. So it's a hybrid of natural fermentation and also yeast fermentation. So it's slightly sour, but it's not fully sour. And it's just I just really wanted to try this beer, and I had to buy it in bulk. So this is why this beer is in the seminar. Most of these beers are because I wanted to try them. So so they leave this in oak. Oh yes.
Just a small question. What makes beer like typical Belgium?
Yeast.
Is it just a yeast?
Not just the yeast, but Belgium yeast is very specific to Belgium. That's one of the main reasons, but there are a bunch of other reasons. Part of it is the growing conditions, which we will actually get into with a beer later on. So this is left in oak casks from different various alcoholic beverages. So you also will get oak, and oak can impart tannins and other things into the beer, and can also add sourness as well. So this should be quite unique. I'll actually try this one. Yeah, that's quite interesting. So while we're on number 4, in the UK, there's been a sort of revolution of breweries making Belgium-style cool ship beer. There's one which the first beer was Burning Sky, where near where I live. They have their own cool ship. Mills has their own cool ship. There's another cool ship in Kent. Now, a cool ship is not a new invention as well. It was a lot of English breweries and a lot of Belgian breweries used cool ships. English breweries, once they were able to sort of cultivate yeast semi-commercially, so often it would be baker's yeast or brewer's yeast, they would know roughly what it was doing, so it wasn't going to produce sour beer, and it was a stable product. But they would still use the cool ships to do that in, just with the roofs sort of closed. So a lot of English breweries and Belgian breweries both had cool ships. The Belgians have mostly survived their cool ships. There's like 2 or 3 traditional English breweries left that have their own cool ship. None of them make sour beer, apart from one that makes a masher and another brewery that makes their own sour beer. But it's not the cool ship is not unique to Belgium. A bunch of other European countries, even in America, early on used cool ships as well. So it's quite a worldwide spread. Anyway, so that is, I believe, most of the sour beer out of the way. That's the nice artwork to that one. And then we move on to this. Some people might say this is slightly sour, but it's more farmhousey sort of saison. And this is where we go back to the land in Belgium. So when people were working on the fields, they needed beer to work because it was safer than water. So they came up with Saison, and Saison originally was quite a light beer. This is 8%, so this is quite strong. This is a modern version. This is a modern-ish brewery. Yes? Oh, which one have we done?
Orval.
Oh, right. We need crisps.
Oh,
Yes.
Orval, ja.
So I was going to play a video, but I can't because of the Wi-Fi and all the technical difficulties. So unfortunately, I can't play that video. But many of you have probably seen Jackass and Steve-O. And Steve-O's favourite snack happens to be Monster Munch, which is an English crisp. It's not vegan because it's got milk protein in it, or vegetarian. So, but this goes very well with Orval, according to a few beer writers in the UK. And I have a captive audience here, so I can see how badly people react to trying this with Orval. And if you don't want to try it, you don't have to. It was just a fun experiment to see. But also, I thought it was quite funny if I could have shown the video of Steve-O having talking about Monster Munch and his tattoo. But when I went to visit Orval last year on the way back from revision, I actually they produced two beers at Orval, the normal Orval 6.2 and the Orval it starts with V, but it's a weaker beer that the monks themselves drink. And you can only drink that beer at the monastery in Belgium. So on the way back from revision, we drove, thank you to Stormcaller for putting up with me, we went to visit Orval, and I snuck a pack of Monster Munch into the cafe with me so I could drink it with the light beer just for the sake of trying it. Yes, and Trappist cheese. Maybe one day a cheese seminar, because a lot of the Trappist breweries in Belgium also produce their own cheese. And Orval's cheese is really, really good. So yeah. So Orval, so let's talk, what makes Orval unique is, yes. This is Orval. We'll go back to the Phantom in a minute. Sorry about the confusion. So what makes Orval unique is it has Brett. And Brett eats sugar. So over time, the taste of Orval changes as the sugar is eaten away. So some people prefer Orval fresh, some people prefer 6 months, a year, 2, 3, and so on. After about 6 years, it sort of stabilizes and you're not going to notice much change there. So it makes Orval a very interesting beer. It's very fun if you buy like a case of Orval, have a few now, have a few in a few months, and then a few in a few years, because and it's very interesting. Also because the Finns, let's blame the Finns, because a lot of people outside of Belgium like Orval. There's so much demand for it. Actually, in Belgium, it can be very hard to find Orval, which upsets the Belgians a lot, because there's just not enough of it being made, really. So getting this crate was quite lucky, and I'm very thankful to Frankie for helping me get the crate. So thank you, Frankie. Yeah. So that's Orval, basically. And then after Orval, we'll go back to the Phantom, and then, yeah. So, how is the Monster Munch? Is it terrible or? Yes. Yeah, it's just this in the UK there's a YouTube channel called the Craft Beer Channel, and Johnny Grant that runs the Craft Beer Channel once paired Monster Munch with Orville, and then a bunch of other beer writers and people have done it since, and I just thought it'd be interesting from that point of view. If we jump to UNESCO again, in the UK there's now a campaign to get cast beer, which is beer pulled with a hand pump, which is gravity, and I could go into the details, but there's a campaign to now get that UNESCO, and that's being run by Johnny. He's awesome, and I hope that happens, because if that happens, then there's a chance to get in the UK demo scene UNESCO as well. So people joke that beer and the demo scene, but everything is connected in ways. So back to Phantom. Right, so where was I? This is a farmhouse style of beer from Belgium, which is historically was brewed for the farmers of much weaker strengths. And a very famous one is Saison de Pont. That's probably the most famous example. This is a more modern style. I have actually never had the original version of this. I've always wanted to try it. It's always been in my beer books, and now I can actually see what it's like, because I have no clue. Yeah. Okay. So that you get some tartness and dryness, but you've also got the spiciness on there as well, because they use a lot of spices. And also you kind of get some orange sort of citrus notes as well with that, which is pretty awesome. So what makes Phantom very interesting is they do a bunch of weird beers as well. They do a chili version, they do a chocolate version, they do... but the person now is getting quite on, and I'm not fully up to date if brewery's been sold yet or not. But their stuff is definitely worth seeking out if you like this style of beer, because they make a lot of interesting different beers. Yeah, so that is Brasserie de Phantom, Saison, and yeah. Yes. What was that, sorry? One missing. We've got one missing on the front of the Saison. How are we doing? Um, okay, so we're about to pour the next one. So let's go back in time to 2005, when things were not as crazy as they are now. In 2005, there was a website called ratebeer.com. Ratebeer.com no longer exists because it got bought by AB InBev, and AB InBev eventually closed the website. In fact, it was actually closed February this year. But that website was fundamental in modern craft beer and everything. And it was an American website. So what happened is there was this small monastery in Belgium, and this monastery was making this beer, and this beer, which I'll get to at some point. We're not trying that beer, but anyway, this beer became very, very famous because it became the #1 beer in the world, and everyone wanted to try this beer from this small monastery in Belgium, and they were shocked. And they couldn't make enough, so they had to put limits and check license plates on cars, and it got crazy for them. Anyway, I decided that I would go and visit them. So on the way to, oh wait, I've skipped ahead, haven't I? Yeah, this is great. But anyway, where was I? We'll get back to that. So this brewery I visited on the way, we'll get back to that because it's next to this brewery, which was closed because it's only open on a Saturday. So the next brewery is actually Struce Panpot, and this is a fascinating beer. When I was reading beer blogs when I was definitely 18 at the time, this was one of the beers I always wanted to try. It's not crazy now, but back then it was quite an unusual, crazy beer. And now it's kind of like an English ale, but also in the area of Flanders, sort of the French region, crossing into France. Yes. Yes. This is 2023, but not the barrel version, just the normal version, which is confusing because they brew a barrel version which I couldn't get my hands on. Yes, yeah, So in France, in parts of France, parts of Flanders, the fishermen used to drink this style of beer, sort of the strong beer, and the persons who set up the brewery, that I forgot his name, his dad, his granddad was a fisherman, and unfortunately died in a war that don't mention the war. He named this after the fishing boat that used to go out, so that's where Panpot comes from. The name is from a fishing boat, and I've always wanted to. Right? So it's quite sweet, slightly sour, but that's from the sort of, it's a vintage, so it's been aged a bit like wine. This vintage is 2023, and you could age this for 20 years if you wanted to, and it will continue to mature and change with time. They number the bottles every year as well. Unfortunately, with the economic crisis in this world, the brewery has had to downsize and will be downsizing, but you can still go and visit them, and I would recommend, if you're ever in the sort of Flemish region, to go and visit them, because they are quite interesting. So in that area of Belgium, it's the hop centre of Belgium. There's Popering, which is a town. There's a museum of hops, and because it's a region of hops, there's a bunch of monasteries that brew beer. There's a bunch of breweries that brew beer. So it's a really good region in Belgium to go and visit if you really like beer, especially if you really like Trappist, the monastery beer, or beer like this. And so on the way here, I went to Trappist Westville and I picked up some beer. So this is the next one you're going to try is the Blondes. So this one, everyone wants to try 12, but most people will never get to try the blondes because most people never buy the blonde. But I bought a case. So this is very interesting. This is a sort of Belgian blonde, sort of triple but light beer. It's also very spicy with citrus, and this version is quite fresh because I had to try it while I was doing build up for revision, just to see how it was. What made these beers very unique in the first place was they used to only have the logo on the cap. On top of the bottle, there was no label or anything, but the EU said you can't do that, so they added more to the cap, and the EU was like, you shouldn't really do that, and then eventually the EU said, no, you have to put a label. So now the beers do have a label, but you can tell them distinctly from the cap. Green is blonde, blue is the stronger dark beer, and 12 is the quadruple, which is gold or yellow. Anyway, so the monks themselves kind of stopped brewing in the early 1940s, 50s, because they said it was taken away from the monastery and the monks' work. So they then had a local brewery make their beer called St. Barnabas, and you can get St. Barnabas Abbot 12 quite easily. And Abbot 12 and West La Trevin 12 are essentially the same recipe, but they do use different yeast. St. Barnabas is actually the original yeast, but this now, when they started brewing again in the 90s, they switched and they use Westmalle yeast, and Westmalle yeast is in the Flanders towards Tilburg, in the Netherlands, kind of that area of Belgium. So that makes it quite unique, and this used to be a very sought after beer. Americans would come over and hire cars, and there'd be lines out the brewery, mainly for people to get the 12. But yes, this was great beer. So while you're trying that, I won't jump around the bush. We do have eggs as well. I've always wanted to visit the monastery, so this gave me an excuse to do this. This is kind of going to be the last ever seminar, my last ever beer seminar. So I thought, why not do this? So this is just kind of an excuse for me to go and visit the monastery. Unfortunately, you can't take photos, otherwise I would have taken photos. So the 8 is, of course, the dark beer, not a blonde beer. It's more strong, but it's still quite spicy and quite complex. You pick up the malts, and it's quite bitter as well. You actually really notice the hops on this, and that's quite interesting for some Belgian beers, because some Belgian beers they use 8 hops. They don't want the bitterness or the hop characteristics. They're only using hops as a mechanism to control bacteria. Hops are an incredible way of stopping bacteria growth in beer. There's nothing that works the same, and that's actually the original use of hops. Yeah. I'm trying to... What one are we on? Okay, so we're on this one, right. So, in previous Frankie seminars, you might have gone to Frankie's Trappist seminar, where he did different Trappist beers, because there's a planetary system named by Belgium, and he named it after Trappist beers. So Frankie did the Trappist beer seminar because of that. This is when Frankie dressed up as a monk, which was awesome. And but you'll notice that he never had any Westroven. And if people bothered to look under Frankie's chair, they might have seen something. So while we're still on this one, yeah, I'll shut up there on that for the moment and try and think. So the monastery has a restaurant next to it where you can go and try the beers. It's a very good brewery, not brewery, restaurant. And I went there and I had lunch on the way to come up and do build up. And I had the blonde with lunch because I only wanted one beer because I had to come here and do work. I recommend you go there. I bought a glass as a souvenir, but it fell out the car and smashed. So I'll have to go back and visit there at some point. Yeah. So yeah, we've only got one more after this and then we're done. Hopefully this wasn't too overkill. While we're waiting for the last beer, do we want to do questions if there's a microphone or I don't know, or people can just.
I would like to ask. It is a very, very interesting and simple question. What is the difference between like a cider and a fruit beer?
Yes, so cider is made with fruit and only fruit. You can even use the yeast on apples, which would naturally be on apples, and that's how cider was invented and why cider was very popular, was because it had natural yeast on the outside of the apple. It would actually naturally ferment into cider, whereby beer is made from barley and malt, hop, and yeast, and is fermented. So beer is based on grain, and cider is based on fruit. But often breweries would add fruit into beer, especially like sour beer, because the fruits also had natural yeast on, which would help the brew ferment, and then people like the taste as well. So that's sort of there. You do have something called a graph, and a graph is a hybrid cider and a hybrid beer. That is a thing that exists. I hope that sort of answers that question.
Thank you very much. Frankie never answered that question. Thank you.
Yeah, one up here. There's one here, and then
There would be plenty of talk about breweries in Belgium and breweries in England, but what would be the defining factors of what makes English beer English and Belgian beer Belgian? Would there be any?
England will be cask beer. Cask beer is unique to England. There's very few other places in the world that make cask beer, and cask beer is a natural product and what makes it unique is it continues to ferment in the cellar of the pub and then it's pulled with a hand pump, and that's very unique to England. Belgian beer is very unique to Belgium. It's often very in bottles, and it's a lot stronger than English beer, a lot more yeast forwards than a lot of English beer. Although saying that English beer can be quite yeast forward depending on the style, but I would say it comes down to really a matter of serving style, cultural differences. In England, people like to drink lots of beer, and Belgian people will sip strong beer slowly with a meal. So it's cultural and historic sort of. It's a bit difficult to say. I hope that answered that.
And drinking of beer would be a lot more in bulk, but in Belgium it's a lot more gourmet.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, at the front. If yeah, so that's the amount of sugar, really, and the amount of fermentation it goes through. So one fermentation, two, three, yeah. So, but that's not fully true. It does vary, but that historically. Why? Anyway, so under Frankie's chair, what did we have under Frankie's chair that no one ever looked under? Well, hiding under that chair, if you had looked, was a crate of Trappist 12. So actually, this is not the first time that Revision has had a crate. It's just no one ever knew about it. So this is number 12. This was rated the world's best beer by Rate Beer in 2005. That's probably quite a long time ago now. These days, it's still quite sought after, and you'll be paying 15 euros or something for a bottle outside of Belgium, generally because it's very scarce. But if you go to the monastery, you can pre-book and get a crate of 24, which I did. So I have a lot to take home, which is fun. So yeah, this is a quadruple. There's a bunch of other Trappist breweries like Roquefort 10, which is a quadruple, Chimay Blue, which is a quadruple, and then there's a bunch of non-Trappist breweries that also brew quadruples. There's a bunch of American, there's a bunch of English breweries that also brew this style. There's a bunch of breweries that brew this style and they put it in wooden barrels and all kind of things. But this is the original, the sort of beer that made everyone go crazy. And as this is the logistics of doing a beer seminar and how things have changed, this will probably be the last one. So I wanted to just do this on a high note, and I really hope that you enjoy this beer and you've enjoyed the seminar and I've made somewhat sense. So, thank you. Yeah, oh yeah, drink plenty of water, eat food, and don't be too rowdy. Thanks.